Hi friends, Shauna Klingerman here, and I am just here to talk to you about cutting out your items that you buy in the print and pray shop. I know it looks scary, all these tiny little adorable things, and I know sometimes you just think you can't do it, but trust me, there is no magic happening here, and you can. Grab your scissors, and let's see what we can do. Okay, so here I am using my newest collection in the Illustrated Faith Print and Pray shop called Here With Us. This is my collection for our December Better Together release, and I thought what better opportunity to show you guys how I cut out my products than just to take my freshly printed out pages and cut them out right here with you. This collection has 3 pages in the main part, and then there are 3 pages of cards and also 3 pages of patterns. However, I didn't print the patterns out for you this time because I just print those as I need. Those are going to be pretty easy to cut out. So we will start by just cutting out the 3-page collection with all the little icons and word art on it because I know that's the more intimidating project. I don't have any super special tools, friends. I have these 2 little containers that I like to use where I sort my objects, and then I have a circle punch. It's 1 inch and it matches all of my circles. I have the tab punch from We Are Memory Keepers, and then 2 pairs of scissors. You're going to want a tiny pair of scissors and a big pair of scissors. I find for me that works best. These are not pricey scissors. These are actually just the ones that I found at Tuesday morning that were my favorite colors. I promise there's nothing magical about these. So when you're working with your big page of printed cutouts, the first thing you want to do is just loosely cut out whatever piece it is that you want to work with. It's really hard to turn and navigate a full page of icons. Your scissors get caught on things, the page is too big, but if you cut it out nice and small, it gets much easier. Then all you need to do is just go around the edge of the image and cut it out. Sometimes you might drop it. Oh well. Don't go all the way up to the edge of the image, but leave a tiny little border. I find that's a lifesaver for me, and it gives me some freedom to not be perfect because trust me, I do not cut these out perfect. I try to kind of follow the edges of little bits and pieces in there, but I don't obsess about it. I don't worry about it being just so. The idea is just to kind of frame it out, leave a little white mat around, and expect and accept the imperfection. Trust me, when you're all done, you won't even notice. I highly recommend trying both things. Try rotating your scissors while you cut, and try rotating your paper and leaving your scissors still. 9 times out of 10, I like rotating my paper and leaving my angle of my scissors somewhat the same. It helps me get a smoother cut and a little bit more control. But you have to play around and see what works for you. Disclaimer here, I totally am going to speed up portions of this video because you absolutely don't want to watch the entire 45 minutes that it took me to cut this out. However, don't feel stressed that this has to be your entire plans for the day because I like to cut mine out while doing other things like waiting for pots to boil. Nope, not that because I don't boil pots very often. However, while watching TV or sitting and having a conversation with somebody, I have been known to pull out my printables after Thanksgiving dinner and just start snipping. Objects like this particular little banner word arty thing are really pretty easy, straight lines. Just remember to leave that little white border. It makes a world of difference. Now you will see that I want to cut out these bottom images, so I'm going to cut them loose from the page again. I cannot emphasize how helpful this is. This is probably my #1 tip for cutting things out from the print and pray shop. If you cut them away from the rest of the objects on the page, they're so much easier to work with. You can turn your page while you work. It just happens faster and with a lot less frustration. Then you just snip, 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 no big deal, and have fun with it. These little cutout houses are not perfect. That is seriously, honestly, I promise, not the point. You just cut them out to the best of your abilities. When you make a little mistake, you just pretend it didn't happen, because next time you pick it up, you will not even be able to see it. These trees are probably the hardest piece in this particular set, but there's a few different ways to cut them out. This time, I'm going to show you how I try to cut them out in as much detail as possible. But notice, they're not perfect. I'm not following the exact same margin the entire time. I am keeping that white space to make life easier. And the other thing that I'm doing is that I'm rotating the page as I cut to help me get those angles. And yes, I did speed this tree up quite a bit because it's kind of tedious. And, well, I don't want to bore you, but I'm going to show you on the next tree how I make it a whole lot simpler. Just hang tight. In the end, it is definitely not perfect, but that is okay. When I have tiny little icons like this that are kind of scattered about, which I do a lot on my print and pray products, when I cut them out the initial time, I usually just kind of cut them in a group. These things are little and fiddly, and we don't want to take all that time when we're not sure how we're going to use them. So just cut them out loosely and move right on. And I'm just going to keep cutting away, friends. I thought I would mention on this tiny little present, one thing that I do is when I get to the bow, rather than trying to get all that detail, I just kind of add some tiny little ripples by rotating my paper and just wiggling my scissors around. Nothing too complicated and really not perfect, but it worked just great and it gave it a little bit of detail. On this next present, I'm going to kind of try a similar strategy where I just kind of loosely follow that shape of that bow. Once again, the key being this little white margin and just kind of turning my page around the corners as I go. With this little stamp, it is obvious that there is no way I'm cutting those tiny little divots, so I'm just giving it a straight border near the edge of the stamp shape, but leaving a little bit of white once again. For my scriptures, I always like to just cut them out all in a row. That way they're really easy to find when I'm looking for references. So I just cut a line straight across, but when I'm doing a long line, I like to use my big scissors. So I pull out the big scissors that I have because the thing is, the longer the line you have to go, the less times you want to have to open and close your scissors. So a big pair of scissors is just the ticket. So let's talk for a minute about this garland. This garland is going to be rough to cut out on cardstock. That's just the way that it is. I'm not exactly sure if I'm going to even use it in its cardstock form, but for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to cut it out for you here. And the way that I will do it is just start by pulling it loose from the rest of the page, just like every other thing that I've cut out. And then I'm just going to loosely kind of follow these scallops and cut around without worrying too much about defining all those little baubles, because I feel like that could make even me crazy. On the top side, I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm just going to cut out those scallop shapes without overthinking it. This seems like a good time to mention that some products, I think, actually look a lot cuter on the Avery sticker paper. I love having all these little bits of like that die-cutty looking things, so I tend to use cardstock. But I would imagine that that little scalloped border would look so cute on this clear sticker paper that you print on top of and then peel away, and it kind of just melts into your paper. So there's some food for thought if you want to try that. Just a few more icons to go here, friends, before I'm done with page 1. I'm just going to power through and get these puppies done. And while I'm cutting, let me just give you one more little pep talk for this page because I cannot drive it home enough. Your little graphics and your pages are going to be adorable no matter what mistakes you make. I honestly promise. Just trust me on this and try to just enjoy the process. It's kind of a grounding experience to put all your energy on focusing on cutting these tiny little margins, and I think it's kind of good for your brain. Moving into page 2 here, somehow I'm missing just a tiny snip of video. But all I'm doing here is before I even start page 2, I'm just breaking this page into chunks just to make life easier. Since I already explained that process to you, I don't need to go into detail, but I'm just going to dive in. Once it's chunked out, I'm just going to start working on one thing at a time. And to spare you, I am not going to talk you through every detail, but if there's anything really important, I promise to slow it down and tell you what's what. As promised, I wanted to walk you through another way of cutting out one of these funky little trees. So instead of trying to get all the detail on this tree, what I'm doing is I'm just kind of wiggling my paper and letting my scissors make some little scallops that are very, very minor, kind of echoing the shape of the tree, but with a very, very loose interpretation and without too much obsessing. What I end up with is a more bubbly version of this cutout tree, still super adorable and much quicker. Here's a comparison of the two so you can kind of see the difference. Okay, friends, promise me you will not be intimidated by cutting out this little car. Although it seems like there's a lot of detail, once again, it's just the exact same concepts we've been doing before. We're just following it loosely. We are not doing it perfectly. We're leaving that margin and we're just letting it happen. It does not have to be super, super close to the edge. We just want to get the shape of the car out of the big page and it's going to look adorable. I promise. And now for our very last bits on page 2, these 3 little stockings. Page 3 of my product is the easy one. This is my borders, my bookmarks, and my tabs. Most of these you cut out with a punch, but before I can cut anything out, I chunk it out again. This time, I'm removing things that need to be punched out from the other products, and I'm cutting all of my punch items in a row so that they will fit in the punch. I'm not exactly sure what to call these things, so I'm just going to call them triangle tabs, but these are easy peasy to cut out. No punch required because they are just straight lines. 2 straight lines down and then a little pokey bottom. For the borders, I'm going to be using my big scissors again because once again, it's super easy to cut a long row when you have a big pair of scissors. So just a few snips down the line and I will have my borders cut right out. This little banner is much easier to cut out with my small scissors because it has that little inward point, but this is an easy one again, straight lines. I always forget to do my white border on a banner or a straight line, but it doesn't matter quite as much in this situation because it's much easier to just follow that line. So I think it's good to go just like this. And once again, I'm keeping my little fiddly hearts all grouped together. I'll cut those out separate if I want to in the future, but this makes it easier for storing and for cutting out right now. These two are my bookmarks. The one on the right here is actually a bunch of word strips, so it could be used in journaling, or you can use it as an actual bookmark. You get to decide. Once again, big scissors for this job. Now it's time for my favorite part. It's tab time. All of the tabs in the Illustrated Faith Print and Pray shop are made to work with this official tab punch from We Are Memory Keepers. And I just go through, line them up to my best ability, and punch away. The circles are also designed to work with a punch. This is just a regular 1-inch punch, and it totally does the job of cutting out these circles without having to use scissors. And there you have it. That, my friends, is how I cut out my entire little collection of bits for my Print and Pray releases. I'm going to show you next how I cut out the cards. But let me tell you, this is much, much easier. When you're cutting out your cards, you have a few options. They are straight lines, so you could pull out a paper cutter and just do your best to line up that line and cut out your cards like that. However, I find that it's actually quicker for me to just pull out my scissors again. And so instead of fiddling with my paper cutter, I just pull my scissors out and I just cut straight lines with that big pair of scissors until I get all 3 pages of cards cut out. There's only 12 cards, so it really truly does not take that long. Friends, I know this has been a little bit of a long video, but I'm really hopeful that it has been helpful for you in taking just a wee bit of the intimidation factor out of cutting out your products from the Print and Pray shop. I don't use anything fancy. I don't even use my silhouette. I find it to be the easiest to just use a good old-fashioned pair of scissors. So don't be afraid. Give it a try. And leave me a note in the comments and let me know how it goes for you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye, friends.